Hello and welcome to Leave the Feed 30 Days of Disconnect. Today is 17 wise choices and a wise human with me, Juan Faura. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, James. Excited to be here.
Oh, thanks so much. It's great to reconnect. You are one of the original contributors of Leave the Feed, Disconnect to Reconnect. And before we get into choosing wisely and wise choices in life as a creator and just as a human, let's hear about your story. What sparked this passion for the creator economy and where has this journey taken you?
Totally, yeah. So to start off, I want to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I in college went to Penn State, thought I wanted to be a Wall Street kid and wanted to pursue the finance track. Realized quickly that wasn't for me, and so through the NIL, which is name, image, likeness, allowing college athletes to monetize, that sparked my interest for sports and entertainment. And through experiences of representing college athletes in college and starting my own venture where I was representing some of the top gymnasts, I stumbled upon this thing called the creator economy in October of 2024 when ended up joining a company called Night Media, which represents some of the top creators across YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. And I've been at the epicenter of, I guess, internet culture now for the last year and some change. And it's been amazing, been able to work with some fascinating talent. And yeah, I would say what spawned it is my experience within sports and entertainment in college that transcended over to, the creator economy.
So talk about that transition in college where you think you're going down one direction, then you're going into another. What was it like to take that leap of faith and what did you have to release to do that? And what were some of the challenges you faced in that process?
Totally. Yeah. I think a lot of times when you come into college, you have these goals and ambitions, and you think it's going to be the way that you want it to be. And it's going to be a straight path. But in reality, for not everyone, sometimes that's the case and you know exactly what you want. But through exploration, through different internships, through different opportunities, and through different conversations, that's what it took. And those were kind of some of the things where it's like, am I wasting my time? There was a point where I'm like, I'm doing all this networking, I'm going to all these events, I'm doing this internship over the summer, spending 3 months of my time every single day just to find out I don't like it. Am I wasting my time? But I think through that process, one of the lessons I learned is like, that's what it sometimes takes. Sometimes part of your time as an 18 to 22-year-old is actually figuring out what you don't like rather than what you do like, because that allows you to check the box off and it gets you that much closer to actually finding your true purpose. And so I would say that's kind of my framework that I played within was when it came to navigating what are some of my interests. And look, I'll be frank with you, James. Right now, I'm in the creator economy, specifically within podcasting and representing podcasters. That could change, and I'd be back to sports and entertainment within the next 2 years. But I know that at my core, I want to represent talent and I want to represent, the brightest minds when it comes to creative. And so that took time though of taking an internship my sophomore year. That took time having all the networking with different people in various industries within finance or consulting or other respective, industries. So I think the game is patience and understanding that it's part of the process. You don't need to have it figured out at 20.
With NIL, name, image, and likeness, when that was all happening within college sports, tell me about that time and what it was like working with athletes for the first time that can use their NIL.
So when it comes to college athletes, yeah, a lot of kids when you go to college, they're like, there's like this wall I noticed where there's normal students and there's the athletes. At least at a school like Penn State, that's massive. It's a Power Five conference, one of the best in sports. And there's like a disconnect. And I'm like, well, there's 40-year-old agents that talk to these guys when they go to potentially go to the NBA or NFL for those two main sports. But who's helping the gymnast? Who's helping the soccer player? Who's helping the men's hockey player? Like, no one's really paying attention to those sports. And more importantly, they want to be able to have a relatability aspect because they're navigating this on their own, right? Also, while navigating college as a whole experience. And so that was very interesting for me dumping into that head first. And that's where I found the gap. And that's where I found the opportunity was there's 30 and 4-year-old agents that are trying to navigate NIL, which is primarily based in social media. It's not you like your typical, hey, I'm a junior, I'm leaving college to go to the NBA and I need someone that's going to negotiate my contract. This is, hey, I want to partner with local businesses. I want to build my social media so I can do my own summer camp or I can do my own venture and build a business around my name. And knowing how to play within that framework and being on campus with them on site and just being one of their buddies, it allowed me to step into that. And it was a great experience. It was definitely an up and down cycle. I learned a ton just figuring it out on the spot. I'll tell you, kind of my first breakthrough client, if you will, was Jordan Bowers. She's a University of Oklahoma gymnast. She ended up winning the national championship last year. And just being around a talent who was kind of one of the faces of her sport and the pressure that came with that of, hey, if I'm not delivering, like she could fire me and go to and find someone else. Because there were people trying to work with her as in being her management. And so being on top of it and really being organized, which made me realize what it takes to really be successful in this industry. I got a taste of it, right? So yeah.
What about the commitment from the athlete side? Because typically when you think of college athletes, it's like I'm doing doubles, triples a day, practicing, and now all of a sudden I have a new commitment, and that commitment's my image, my social media, and keeping up on all of that. How do they manage that time, and what stresses does it put on them?
That's the golden question, James. Some athletes, right, understood the value of NIL and how you could capitalize it, not from a solely monetarily perspective, but actually from how can this help build my personal brand? I think a lot of times when NIL started, it's now 4 years in, people are like, oh, NIL, and understandably so, right? Now I can make money, 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 money. But like they didn't realize like this more, it's a bigger picture. Like I think of NIL as if I want to be a personal trainer, what if I partnered with a supplement company like First Form, who has a personal training program that if I become a sponsored athlete while I'm a college student, then I can get an internship program from this opportunity of promoting their brand on social media. And I did so well for them. And then they're like, hey, by the way, I know you're interested in being a personal trainer. What if we come hire you as an intern? Like, it's so much bigger than, hey, I did a $10,000 brand deal. And so to answer your question about like how do they navigate it, I think some athletes realize like that opportunity, but others are just like, yeah, I'm not going to post on my social media unless I get paid $5,000. And that's unfortunate because I don't think they're seeing the bigger picture. And so, yes, some athletes were hard navigating, telling them like, hey, I have an opportunity for you. All you need to do is post it. And it just took them so much for them to get an Instagram story of. And then others are like asking the question of how do I really make this for my career? How do I really expand upon this? So yeah,
Yeah, because eventually at some point, for most college athletes, the journey stops after graduation and what next. So if you can do these light engagements and touches with
that's
brands
right.
and get inside, that can help fuel that next element of your trajectory. I mean, we see so many former athletes when I worked with the NFL or the NBA. That's where they all come from. They all have that background. Very interesting. In terms of mental health, you're on a different side of the creator economy, right? You're helping fuel the creator economy with what you do. You're not necessarily pumping out 5 posts a day for yourself,
Nah.
but mental health is a huge part of this equation. And what's just your general perspective of social media, mental health from the lens that you've participated in? And also, how has it impacted you as well?
Yeah, being brutally honest with you and not sugarcoating it, for me personally, I think the comparison is the thief of joy. And I think unfortunately, social media has created some of that where you see people, whether it's flexing different accomplishments and it's almost become a PR stunt, right? And you're seeing all their best moments. I think before we were recording, we were talking about how we're kind of seeing that shed back a little bit where we're actually seeing more authenticity, which I think is great for the platforms. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. And like I said, I definitely struggled, especially in college, being as ambitious as I was, seeing like, oh my gosh, this person at my age or 2 years older is balling right now. They got the jet or they're, balling in Miami or they're doing their thing. And the reality is like everyone's running their own race and you never see the other side of the equation. Someone could have a private jet, someone could have a car, someone could have the house, but is their soul at peace? And I think that's kind of the framework that I like to live in. And so, to answer your point of how does it navigate mental health and what are my thoughts on the platforms and social as a whole? I think social is actually a great thing. It's the way you approach it and actually interact with it, right? If you're going on social media and your goal is just to show your best moments, right? By default, that is what it is created. But I think there's a way to be able to, like, for someone, I'll give you a great example of why social media is great. If you're a small business owner, right? Back in the day, you would have to do magazine promotion, you would have to get billboards. You can literally, by a touch of this, have a full-time business. Let's say it's meal prep. You could have a full-time meal prep business by just posting content, posting what's on the menu for the week, and building an entire infrastructure that actually could support a family through literally this. And that's crazy. And so that's a benefit of social. And I think it's great on that lens. But from the mental health perspective, like I mentioned, comparison is probably the biggest thief of is the thief of joy, and that's created that environment. But I also think it's like that's where it creates that self accountability of understanding that that's not the framework we need to live in, and think of social as a way to connect with others, not to compare. Connect versus compare. That's what I always say.
Yeah, I mean, it is very difficult when social media becomes the thief of joy through those comparisons, but there are joyous moments in it. And I think social media lifts people up. It helps people. We hear amazing stories on this podcast about transforming people's lives from being depressed and lonely to a content creator that are helping people. What do you hope to bring into the world as someone who's helped fueling the creator economy? What's your vision for the future of where you'd like to see the industry go?
Yeah, for me, what's been interesting over the last 3 months, I would say, is this idea of a redemptive framework. And what I mean by that is a redemptive approach to business. I think we live in a space where ambition and success is and hard work is very idolized. And you should do all those things, hard work, dedication, all that. But how do we live in a redemptive framework where it's not about us, right? A lot of people, when they're having these things within the creator economy, it's how do I get to 20 million subscribers? How do I get the car? How do I get XYZ, right? How do I get this brand deal? It always starts with I in the creator economy. And I think that's an issue rather than what can I do for my subscribers? What can I do for, you know, whatever it is, right? I think we need to start thinking more like that because everyone says they want a community when they're building the creator. I hear so many creators, I want to build a community and road to like 1 million subscribers. But in reality, that community, you scratch it off, it equals customers. You just want customers. You want people to buy your merch. You want people to buy tickets to your live tour. And there's not necessarily inherently wrong with that, but it's very self centered. And I think there's a way, like, if you truly want to have success, I think how do we redefine that by being more community centered and like what's in it for them rather than yourself? Because naturally, when you focus on them and the audience, they're going to stay that much more loyal because they're going to be like, wow, I actually have one, a relatability aspect to the creator, and I actually can resonate with what they're talking about. And two, they actually care to like really build a genuine connection with what they're doing. And that's going to make me want to invest so much more. Like my favorite creators are people that I genuinely feel like are like, I'm excited for when they're coming out their next video because they're like making it about us, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense. Now, let's shift gears. Today's topic's about making wise choices. We've talked about some wise choices that you can make as a creator. Let's talk about you, the choices you've had to make. What are some of the challenges or departure moments or those big transitions that you've made as you've entered the creator economy and how you've navigated those?
Big one. This is a great question. Easy. Stopping my own company to fly out to LA. So for context, I'm from Pennsylvania. I've lived there my entire 22 years of my life. I was doing my own company my senior year of college, going post grad. That was the goal, is to build out my agency. I was getting traction and I had to make a really tough decision to stop that, stop working with my clients, to fly to LA to take a chance on this thing called night media and the creator economy and really diving into it head first. Cause like I said, I came from the sports and athlete world. That was a really difficult decision to make, to go from sports and athlete to creator economy focus, YouTube heavy. And at the time, I was really nervous about it because I was like, man, I just was getting the ground running with my company. I was getting some serious, like some good traction. And if I would have stuck with it, I really felt confident where we were going. But, I will say this in life. So the most difficult decisions sometimes lead to the most fruit. And it definitely did. So I'm glad I was able to, take that risk and understand that uncomfortability is actually where most growth happens.
Now, let's talk about faith and how faith has played a role in guiding you through these chapters.
It's been everything for me, James. I think like when I moved to LA, I knew some people, but I didn't know a lot of people. And again, it was much of a culture shock. And having that as my core and understanding that like I am nothing without him, like my Lord and Savior, and that he's granted me all these opportunities. Cause like in reality, none of it's mine. My business I owned, the career I have, the different people I've been able to meet, none of it's mine. It's all his because he was blessed that in my life and he could also take it away from me, right? Like if it comes to my health, if he wants to for me to have health complications tomorrow, I'm still going to glorify him the same way because he's just putting me through that challenge and experience to be as a test of how much do I actually trust in him. Because, people like to say the word faith. I'm sure you've seen, but there's been this like revival in the last year. There's been so much more, even just in the creator economy specifically. There's been so many more Christian influencers or people of spiritual like faith, and there's been a very big push of that from the Bryce Crawfords, Forrest Franks, Girls Gone Bible. There's a lot of creator George Janko. There's a lot of creators coming out and speaking about their faith, but the reality is like that is all great, but it's like how are we doing that on a daily basis and how are we making it our actual core rather than just posting about it? So to answer your question, that was long-winded. It's the backbone of what I do, and it's how I try to going back to my point of approach. What I'm trying to bring to the creator economy is a more redemptive framework rather than it being praising things that I think are not things to praise. So
Yeah. Now, in the journey of life, and you mentioned it, like we're tested on a day to day, moment to moment basis. We can't predict what happens. When you do feel yourself challenged with a choice, and it could be the choice to respond with anger or respond with love, it could be the choice to eat something healthy or indulge in something that maybe you shouldn't eat. Like, how does that faith guide those choices? And how do you stay vigilant over society's impact, social media's impact, to make sure that you stay on a faith driven course?
I'll be honest, that's a great question. It's something that I battle with every day. I think, we like to say in the faith that like sometimes our flesh, we let our human desires sometimes take over, and it's a constant battle each day. I think it goes back to like building a relationship with him and like, understanding that like I can't do it on my own. In these tough decisions, in these tough predicaments, like lean on him, right? And so talk that whether that's through conversation with him, reading his word, fellowship, which is like getting to know people. That's why Ellie's been so impactful for me. Getting to know other people that are also seeking the same thing and passion, like your surroundings is so important. Whether you're in faith or not, like having just like-minded people that can help you navigate those, to your point, tough decisions, tough situations when you don't know the answer. Because a lot of times when we're in those situations, we think we have the answer when in reality you could just try to seek it understanding from an outside perspective and kind of drop the ego.
Sometimes when those moments strike, we feel like the weight's all on our shoulders and our world's imploding. And
Yeah.
to have that community, to have people that we can rely on. And that's one of
Uh-huh.
the reasons we created Leave the Feed, because we have all these great creators, people interested in the creator economy, supporting people that are trying to have a healthier relationship with social media. Now, that being said, there are some people that are listening to this that are going on a 30-day disconnection journey. They're about halfway through. We're really proud of them. There's others that are just looking to get inspired by ideas like being more redemptive with social media. What advice would you have for anyone that feels like they're struggling with their relationship with social media as a fan or as a creator?
I think the first thing is to ask yourself, why are you on the platform? I think we too all too often we're just naturally thrown onto it, whether it's as a creator or as a fan. Like we're just like immersed into it just by default. And I think we have to really ask ourselves, why are we on this platform? Why are we following this person? Why am I posting these videos? That's where I think at the groundwork. And when you really do a deep dive of that, I think it will really help you understand like, are the actions I'm doing based on that why aligning with that or getting me closer to whatever that why is? Or is it, like I said, alignment? And if it's not, I think then you'll be able to have an easier time having a way to navigate it. So, for an example, if you're struggling out there with, oh my gosh, all I do when I wake up is I go on my phone and I scroll and I scroll, and then I'm depressed because I'm unproductive, and then I waste 2 hours of my day. Figure out why are you going and scrolling. I have a rule of thumb. Me and shout out Justin Lewis there. We have this thing called the five whys. Like, really break down each layer. Like, why am I going when I wake up on my phone to go on social media? Because like I want to see what's going on. Well, why do you want to see what's going on? And like basically break that down, and that's going to really give you your true reason of why you're doing what you're doing. And that's going to, I think, open up a lot of answers to how you actually go about removing that or lessening that. And so if your goal is to completely shut off social media. How do we do that in a practical way and that works for you? And I understand this, right? People are like, well, if you don't want to be on social media, then just delete the apps. But that's just not, I think, an effective way. I think there's a way to slowly remove things and whatever works. So that would be my advice is really get to know your why behind being on the platform for either side of the equation, being a creator or being a fan, and if you feel called to stop, do a deep dive on yourself to help find practical ways to actually remove it. Because all too often people will go a week without being on social media, but then they go in the same rat race and then they just get in the same cycle. And so, how do you actually really transform your mind when it comes to social and your relationship?
Yeah, that why is so important. I don't think a lot of people realize why they're consuming and also how it's impacting them. And talk about that unconscious consumption of content and making that choice to blindly follow negative talk and how that impacts the self. Like, why is it such an important choice just to consume things that are healthy for us in the social space, and why it's so hard for people to make that choice?
Well, one, it's hard to make that choice because transparently, not to out any of the platforms, but the algorithm is meant to like feed you stuff that you like watching or that you think you like watching, right? So if you get caught up watching, I don't know, people talking about what's going on from a political standpoint or what's going on in the markets, like it's going to continue to feed that, and then you just constantly are just seeing that all the time, 24/7. And if it's negative energy or if whatever, like it's just not good. And so I think the platforms, unfortunately, that's how the algorithm works. Is it's gonna feed you things, and then you get consumed by it. And so it's really like taking a stand of like I'm personally not an advocate of like let's take a stand and like no more Facebook and like no more Instagram and like we should ban the platforms. Like when people are like doing the whole ban TikTok, right? Like I think it's more. I don't think it's necessarily about banning a platform. I think it's about figuring out a way and how do we get to a place where we're going on social that is for a place of love. And because when you think of social, the reason it was created in the first place was from a connectivity perspective. It was a faster way for a human to a human to connect with each other, whether that's seeing someone's birthday, whether that's seeing someone went on a trip. It was a way to create a meaningful connection. Unfortunately, it's now transformed into a competition. That's what I would say to that.
Yeah, very true. It has become a competition, and the competition, unfortunately, can be very hurtful, not only to people that we're tearing down in these social spaces, but also for ourselves and our self worth and trying to measure up to something that maybe isn't right for us, and finding that ability to nurture our spirit in the direction that we want to go.
That's
Now,
right.
what's next for you, like down the road? Where do you see yourself going, and what's your vision for where you want to take the future of your being?
Well, I appreciate you asking. Yeah, I think for me, it's just continuing to be a follower of Christ and seeing where that leads me, right? From a personal perspective, as well as professionally. You know, he says this in the Bible, like, you can have your visions, but God will show you your steps. And I think, like, that's the framework I like to play in. And that's, like, the way I'm trying to approach it. And that's my game plan. And so, to answer your question, James, like, I just want to seek him. And I feel like he'll show me my ways in terms of different people I'm going to meet, what professions I will pursue. I'll tell you this from a professional perspective, one thing I know is that the minute I get stagnant in any sort of role or any sort of career, it's time for me to change. And I advise that for anyone. Don't ever get stagnant in this world. We only have one life. And so always constantly be learning. I don't care if you're the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, they still read 8 to 10 books a year. So there's always learning, there's always opportunities to grow. And yeah, I'm loving it being in the creator economy. So if that's where he wants me to be, I'll continue to be it. And yeah, I just want to say a quick shout out to Reed Ducksher and Ezra Cooperstein, President CEO of Knight, for taking a chance on me last year. I just hit a year about 3 weeks ago, and it's been an absolute pleasure working for those two. They've, worked with some of the biggest talent within the creator economy, but more importantly than that is that they're great people and they're great leaders. And, I think it's right for me to give them a shout out. But I got to say this, Reed, you don't know how to predict college football games better than me. So that's what I will say.
And I also want to say I'm extremely grateful to have you as part of this project. I know that we got to reconnect after about a year, and now that you're out on the West Coast, it's really awesome. So thank you for being such an inspiring guest with your story and help people make more sense of navigating choices in life and social media and being more redemptive with how they handle their relationship with these platforms. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you guys again for this opportunity. And I'll leave you with this. I have a little saying that's be transformational, not transactional. And one last thing, word of the day today is going to be grateful because I'm grateful for James giving me the opportunity to be on this platform. Anytime you want to connect, hit me on LinkedIn, Juan Faura. Always down to chat. And yeah, be good.
Thanks so much. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Share Leave the Feed with a friend. Don't be afraid to disconnect and have an epic day. Thank you so much.
Let's do it.